Hi, everybody. Pyra Draculea here with another episode of Paint with Pyra. I know I've got a bit of a funny angle that makes the canvas look a little warped. Although this canvas is warped, but that's beside the point. Um, so what are we doing today? Well, last video that I posted was putting on the grid in the paint pen drawing of the image. Today we're going to do some paint pen work. Um, most of which will be sort of covered up. Some of it will show. I'll insert a couple images here of another canvas I'm working on so you can kind of get the idea of what we're doing today. And this may end up being a couple episodes. I'll try and keep the videos from now on about an hour or so. And I mean, I'm filming this closer to Christmas than when this gets posted, but yeah, I'm gonna keep an eye on my watch and try and not make this video insanely long. So, anyways, my style currently is I let some of this process stuff show through, right? Um, and again, I'll link in the bottom to our previous episodes on this painting, Official Judge. But Ricky is at Miller Hall at the Cowichan exhibition. So we've got some windows here to the outside world. And I think for sure I'm going to have grid and paint pen work showing, and then kind of mostly have it somewhat solidly covered on the inside, or I'll have it more subtle, right? So you have some of that texture, because with my painting style, I am well, let's be blunt, I'm sloppy. So I don't, some of this grid stuff is going to show. I'll have like, um, I'm painting his ears, they'll go up to that line, but you may see the blue outline in spots, and then, you know. So I want to make that a stylistic thing as opposed to a mistake, basically. So, and I think I'm kind of out of here, but you may start seeing, of course, I can't check my phone and do it at the same time, but when I lean in, you may see the back of my head, my shoulder, and whatnot. So, uh, let's get started. Now, some of what I like to do with these is kind of echo the color. Um, oh, I've got, yeah, you can sort of see my paint pens are right down here. Yeah, I do need a, like, just tapping to check that we've got, that these are working. So what I'm going to do, um, sometimes with paint pens you need to like thwack them. It depends on the brand. Some of them I haven't had to do that with. And also, okay, sometimes they, certainly, especially these really skinny ones, don't seem to like being used up on the easel as much as down on a table, but that's okay. We've got other ones we can use instead. Different brands that work differently. So one of the things I've been doing a lot these days is kind of doing this kind of cross-hatching pattern, right? So we're going to start with some of these. Oh, I can't remember if I finished my thought about and I just lost it again. That's how it goes. I'm filming this on Christmas Eve morning, so brain fog is a bit of a thing. I have a suspicion that at points this video is going to be more of like an ASMR of, mind you, I'm using a mic, so I don't know how much the scratchy of the scratchy sound of the paint pens is actually going to carry through. But last video I had a well, if I lean it back to me, it's out of focus. Anyways, the last video I had a power outage when I was filming. I just kept talking through it, and then the power came back on. But this one, we're going to have a brain outage, I think. So, but anyways, the point is, I think in my in the windows, we're definitely going to see some of the grid stuff on purpose, and some like decorative little elements and whatnot. So it's obviously getting a little ungrid-like, but we're just gonna do some doodling. And I guess while I'm like doing this, some of the inspiration for this sort of treatment is like from my webcomic Noah's Archipelago. I do these backdrops with like dots and stuff, and I kind of try and have like the color a little bit going with emotional um, palettes or whatever. So if the character's angry, it might be kind of like red dots and stuff, and you know, have that kind of what's a pompous way to describe it? Symbolistic sort of use of color, emotional kind of use of color, and then I got the idea, rather than having solid backgrounds, that might be kind of cool to incorporate that in paintings. So that's what we are doing. It's a little bit trippy too, which is kind of fun. And with Ricky, I mean, Ricky likes the shrooms, so trippy works with this dude. So the idea is that I'll try, especially close to the window frames, that'll be fairly, opaquely done, and then you have this kind of showing, these motifs showing through. There's also a little artist book I did a couple years back, in I guess 2023, which featured Ricky's buddy. Well, I don't know if Myles would consider Ricky to be his buddy, but Ricky considers Myles to be his buddy. Myles is the half mouse, half rat cousin of Ricky's girlfriend, Baby. And in the early development of Myles, before I really realized I needed to put them in the same universe, I did an artist book about Myles that actually I put into the Couch exhibition and won a first prize for. That was like a day in Myles's life. At the time, Myles had a different last name and whatnot, but anyways, that kind of, it's neither here nor there. But I did a lot of this sort of stuff, and it was just like, there's a black and white marker book. Hey Pyra, when you're editing, put some still images through so people know what I'm talking about. But I would have these sorts of like little spiral doodles and whatnot in black and orange in the background. So it's been part of my style for a while, but I wasn't bringing it into the actual painting. Drop this back, which, well, if I drop it back too much, then people can't see, or I have to move the camera and then I can't. Yeah, anyways, it's a whole thing. I think that actually might do it for the windows. Just put like one of these. So that's going to show through. Now, those are kind of, because those ones 100% on the windows, I'm not covering those up. Let me go Zoomy, zoomy. So you can kind of see what I'm doing. Anyways, back down to 1. Where are we going? -5 now. Hang on. We were going for like 7, something like that. I think that was our level of zoom. And when I work down, I'll just move the camera. So anyways, the other stuff is going to be a little bit more tone on tone, sort of. Hey, Pyra, when you're editing, post a picture of other canvases, like the Ursula's Parcel one, where I did the initial layer in the complementary color. Now this is, the background is all kind of like a creamy off-white, and with the lighting in the reference photo up here, it has more pink undertones, and lower down it starts to have more green undertones, which probably just means that whatever light bulbs they have those wavelengths of light. So it's kind of white, but kind of not. So that's why I did the color wash this way, right? With green on top and pink on the bottom, because it's gonna flip. But the initial layer of the paint pen work, we're gonna stick with that complementary, because it then kind of impacts how things go through. And I do also want to use some of the paint pen work to show planes. So this is the ceiling. So we're going to probably have lines going this way, and it might just simply be lines at this point. And then I may kind of do it differently with a different shade on this. These are acoustical panels, so I'll probably treat them a little differently in the pen work. Frankly, I don't think they do much for the acoustics in the space, but whatever. And let's do the walls first, and then we'll do something more, I want to say stringy, but that's not really the word, but whatever. If memory serves, and I probably should have my color reference in front of my face, but hang on. But I do think the ceiling, it looks darker, even though I'm sure it's the exact same shade of paint. There's the color reference from before. So, and then we'll do the banners and stuff. So, let's see here. Okay, I am gonna do the ceiling first. So, and I've had friends of mine say, I can't draw a straight line. And it's like, well, you know what the way you avoid that is you purposefully put a little wiggle in. It reads as a straight line, but it also reads as it's not supposed to be a straight, like, like it doesn't look like you screwed it up when it's off, because it's like, well, there's clearly wiggles in there, and then we make the wiggles a little more extreme as we go. Now, I am going to wrap this stuff on the edges, because I wrap my paint around. And this also helps to like mask parts of the grid that may show through, because it just all becomes texture underneath. So then it's less frustrating, especially if you're using paints that are a little more transparent, like even these are kind of more transparent. You end up where the grid does show through, and then I'm not even worried that we've got an extra line in there. I noticed when I was editing the last video, the more I talked, the less I worked. And when I was Mind you, that wasn't as bad because I had I had the grid, so different part of the brain. I think I can't remember if I may have shut out or cut out some of what I was talking about when I was grading about drawing up on vertical, but I do have shoulder issues. So we are actually going to start tilting where I've got the canvas on my knees and whatnot, because already that little bit of reaching up was making my shoulder very angry with me. So, checking every so often, go like, is this actually in the camera? Because that was another thing. Well, if when I'm editing, I find a bunch of where I've been doing stuff and it wasn't actually showing in the camera, I will just cut those bits out and skip them. But yeah, so well, I know this video is going live, I guess January like 7th, something like that. New Year's resolution time, right? So I guess that's something to kind of blather about a little bit. Also going to, what I'm going to do is I'm going to adjust my easel so that I can have it on the easel, but down. No, that's not going to work either. Sometimes, sometimes things are just a little bit awkward, but I do need to adjust my easel because if I want to rest a corner on it, this is from a canvas I was working on that was way smaller, so I had to have it higher up to reach. But we are just going to do, yeah, it's good enough. By the way, this easel, I got this easel on Amazon. It was actually pretty cheap, realistically. Yeah, that's a better angle for me. So anyways, you can, and it will accommodate very large canvases. I could put this crossbar piece right down to the ground pretty much, and then, never mind about that. And then this top bit, using like a gooseneck tripod that's a pain, but this you can pretty much put right up to the ceiling. So you could put a 7-foot canvas on this. I will not, because I can't get a 7-foot canvas in my car to take it anywhere or to get it home. So I guess if you're working that big, to a certain extent, what you want to do is just put the raw canvas on the wall and worry about stretcher bars at a later point in the process. But oh yeah, so I was gonna start. The squirrel that runs my brain is away on Christmas vacation right now, apparently. Anyways, it's gonna say I could talk about right now. So I have something to say while I'm just mindlessly drawing lines. Is New Year's resolutions. So, well, I mean, one of mine that I've already started is to paint more. I have painting plans going for, shows I want to put work into and whatnot. That basically I'll be trying to do one canvas. This is a 24 by 30-inch canvas. I'm going to be trying to do one this size or bigger every month, which compared to the amount of painting I was doing last year sounds like a crazy high jump. But at the same time, this goes pretty quickly, actually. I mean, Or no, pardon me, yeah, no. One a month this size. One a month that's like small works, like 20 by 20 or smaller. And then I do have a bunch of like 6-inch canvases that I'm going to be trying to actually do like one a week now. The 6-inch canvases, that might be a little bit harder to organized. We'll see. One of the things I find is I'm like, my process has been super inefficient. Now, this time I went through, I gessoed 7 canvases in one day. Like, I showed the first coat for this one. Actually, it was the day and a half, pardon me, day and a half. But when I did this one, I also had next to it a small, like a 20 by 20, and then like 4 6x6s. And then also the 30 by 40 for Noah's Clown Dance. So those were all got gessoed within the space of 24 hours in 2 coats, right? So then, and then the day that I did, and you see what I was saying earlier about purposefully don't worry about making the lines parallel. If you want them to be straight and parallel, then you need to use a ruler pretty much. Is the only way that that happens. Or you use masking tape, but then you're not using paint pens at that point. Anyway, so I was kind of doing like assembly line in a sense. I had like one of those folding gray plastic tables people use at markets. So I had one of those. I laid down plastic on it. I laid out my canvases and just started, did all the gessoing, let them sit and dry for a few hours, did the second coat of gessoing, let it sit and dry overnight. Boom. Next day, whipped up my base color, and obviously the only one of those I filmed the process for was this one, right? So anyways, then I got the kind of assembly line stuff, and got all the base colors done, and then the gridding. The 3 that, like the little baby canvases, like 6 inches, I don't bother gridding. I'll just freehand on those. But like this one, Noah's Clown Dance, and then the Ursula's package, all got gridded within a 24 to 48 hour period. So that then it's kind of, once you get to the point where you have the drawing on it, then it's not as much of a problem, because, okay, I can look at this. This is Ofishul Judge. I recognize the image, right? Whereas sometimes when you just have the color, I have canvases that I colored for something, like 2 or 3 years ago, and I set it aside and I have no idea what it's supposed to be now. So I use them for other purposes. But although actually at that point I was still using some of the really, the skinnier canvases are only at like a 1/2 inch thick, as opposed to this is like 1.5 inches. So now I don't even, probably the ones, well, I shouldn't say that I won't use the ones that are skinnier. I think what I'm going to do is, I know I have a painting workshop I'm taking with Mitchell Villa that's a landscape one, in the starting in January. And usually Mitchell's classes, because I've done a few of his now, he'll have the first class or two where you do have some like exercises, and then you start on your own project. So I'll probably use them in, for exercises, because they are skinnier, so they take up less room in the car if I'm taking them to workshop or whatever. But like, back in the day, the skinnier canvases were the thing, and these fatter ones were kind of like something weird. But these do, if they're hanging on the wall, they do have more presence. And maybe I've just been brainwashed into thinking that. But, it's kind of now, this is the standard thickness, it seems, right? And anyways, so I may even, because I do have a bit of a canvas hoard, I may talk to the gals at the local art center and sort of see, do you guys want these skinny canvases? Maybe some of your, high school students could use them or whatever. So I may get rid of them because they're taking up space. Anyways, so I have a list of things I want to submit paintings to. Souk Fine Arts, I think I've mentioned before. This one's going um, to Cowex. And this part is kind of a tedious thing. Oh yeah, I'm kind of getting out, but I'm just doing that, right? But so anyways, that's one of my New Year's resolutions. I think you've probably noticed in the background here in my studio, which is the family room of my house, that things are kind of chaotic and messy. So that's a New Year's resolution, to go around, do the Marie Kondo, disposal of anything that brings you no joy except for the stuff the government requires you to keep. Um, you know, Obviously my city water bill doesn't exactly bring me joy, but I do need to keep a certain amount of those in my filing system. But like, one of the things I want to do is organize, declutter, get rid of a lot of stuff. But on a personal level, I'm sure if you see my scuttlebutt videos, you probably notice I eat way too much, and that's very visibly obvious. So I'm already starting to walk more. I have been over the last, few months. Actually down 15 pounds since the end of June. Not that you'd know it by looking at me, but uh, it's also the holiday season right now. I was down 20 pounds. And then the holidays came, and yeah, my willpower went. Anyways, gotta get back on track with that. So I'll be working on getting fitter and healthier. And I think the way to do that, honestly, is just making small changes that you can maintain. And then as one becomes normal, then you kind of build from there. Um, one thing I did in June is, generally speaking, I don't have soda in the house. So if I'm sick, I'll have some ginger ale or juice. But generally speaking, I just drink water, except if I'm at a restaurant or fast food joint, but I'm trying to not go to those as much. In January, I'm going to switch over to, bottled water, even at, the fast food joints. So that makes a huge difference. And then, trying to be a little bit more mobile. Build up to 10,000 steps, because that seems to be, I don't think it actually has to be 10,000 steps. I think there's studies that have shown like there's a marked benefit at 7,000 steps, and then another marked benefit around like 9,000 ish. Some studies say like 8,500, some say 9,500, call it 9,000. 10,000 per se doesn't seem to, like it's good, but it doesn't, like, that, it isn't really a magic number. Magic numbers are like 7 and 9, I think. So I'm I'm kind of like, there's some things I don't bother to track, and then there's other things I get like really weirdly obsessed with tracking. So I have like a spreadsheet because I have a Garmin watch that tracks my steps. Well, mostly tracks my steps. It doesn't recognize, obviously, if it only works on when my wrist is swinging. So if I'm at Costco pushing the shopping cart, I may be like doing 2,000 steps at Costco if I'm up and down every aisle, but Garmin will think I only did about 75. So it's not perfect, but just finish off the corner now. but I want to build up to the 10,000 steps, eat more salad, that sort of stuff. Okay, so we got the roof with this. Now for some areas I'll go and I'll do like more detailed stuff, and for some stuff like this I just kind of want to vanish. So, you know, I'm going to be a little bit sloppy because I do like this yellowish stuff, but so we'll figure that out when we start blocking in the color, which will be definitely not this video, because I think I've been going for like 20 minutes. I've barely touched this. So the paint pen work on this may be like 3 videos. But now let's get something a little different. Let's do these acoustical panels. I'm trying to think. I feel like there ought to be one there, but I guess no. I guess the gapping is correct. So we'll do the acoustical panels, and then we'll do the banners. And at that point, we're probably going to be, I mean, we're almost half an hour in at this point. So anyways, try and do just different textures. For this, I think I'm going to be doing little dots, but not like circles, but just this sort of like pointillism type of thing. And then also when this eventually gets painted, like the color, instead of doing brush strokes like this, I'll just like dab and it gets a little bit of a pointy. You get some tiny peaks on, like acrylic paint will tend to not hold peaks as well as oils, but especially because, I mean, if I was using modeling paste, but I'm not going to bother with gels or modeling paste. But you get that tiny thing that just has a bit of a different texture, and these do have a bit of a different, almost look a little bit spongy, but not really, because these are, yeah, I think they're probably the kind of acoustical treatment that was common in the 50s or 60s whenever this building was built. Certainly not the kind of, I mean, if you're in a recording studio, there's different ways of doing acoustical panels. Some of the ones I've seen were like you would take 2x4s, build a frame out of it, and then stuff the inside with like pink fiberglass, you know, the batting, as if it was a wall, like just in there. And then you would wrap the whole thing with, you know, some sort of a funky fabric pattern, and then hang it on the wall, and do a few of those. I've also seen, many years ago, I did audio engineering at, went to audio engineering school. Let's bring that down so you can sort of see what I'm doing. I went to Nimbus School of Recording Arts, which unfortunately was a victim of the lockdowns a few years ago, and they closed down. But one of the interns one day, his task was to go into the live room, and he cut a whole bunch of like wood blocks. So they had like, it looked like a shiplap wall, but it was a lot thicker and different patterns and thicknesses and stuff. So that's one way to do it. Yeah. Upstairs, there's a tiny, it would be like a nursery style bedroom, like really, really teeny, that I use as my audio room. Not that I've used it lately. It's kind of like a storage catch-all because I haven't been podcasting much. But what I did in there, because initially I was going to, I used to play drums, so I was going to put my drums in there. So if you go to like Walmart, in like it's next to their little throw area rugs, but they have like the foam pads that are like, you can see them either on gym floors, but also like kids' playrooms have them, where it's like an inch of, half inch of foam. So, and then at the edges they have like a, well, actually that might work. Got another little cart there that holds it, but they have like little dovetail foam thingies. So I put a layer of, well, first I put a plain white cotton bed sheet down to protect the floor so that the foam wouldn't end up sticking to it. And then I put that might work. And then I put a grid of these, the kids' play mat foam under there. So it was like 6 feet by 8 feet or something like that. And then there's like area rugs on top of that. So you could clap your hands in that room and it doesn't echo. Especially if you have if you have the door closed. If you have the door open, then you get the echo from my stairwell. But so that's one way to do it. And then I have like a storage ottoman that's got a lot of foam, cushy, whatever. I'm gonna turn this around so I can reach it easier. Which means, yeah, slap it on there. And that's anyways, there's various, but these, when you look at them close up on the surface, they kind of have a look as they're probably made out of asbestos, I'm sure. But when you look at them, they also kind of, the surface looks a little bit like a plate of spaghetti. Like there's like fibers that are all like twisted around on the top. So anyways, that's, why am I bothering about that? I mean, different types of acoustical panel, but we'll try and have these have a bit of a texture. This stippling already getting annoying. I don't know how Seurat did this for entire paintings. It's awkward to get. I guess that's the least awkward shoulder position. It's like most days my right shoulder doesn't bother me, but if I'm painting on camera, apparently it'll decide that that's a great old time. Although not always, because I don't think I had too many issues when I was working on Ricky's Still Life, the first couple of paint with me's, paint with Pyras, whatever I was calling them. So anyways, I guess the moral of the story is if you're doing paint pen work, don't choose to do stippling. Because by the time you get to the third area you need to do it on, it really, really sucks. Well. So anyways, I was talking about New Year's resolutions. And well, it's time for me to finish the first Noah's Archipelago anthology and get that up on Amazon and therefore launch an actual business, set up an Etsy shop, all that stuff where it's kind of like, is it really New Year's resolution so much as it's just like business planning? Yeah. I have seen people do like this kind of thing with like the micron pens, but they're doing all the shading in like a portrait or something with this, and it's like, okay, I would have like a weird screeching meltdown if I did that much stippling, or everything was shaded that way. Move this back. I mean, I'm already moving the camera to show what I'm doing, right? So what's a little bit more? Technically speaking, I should be going. This thing in the actual Miller Hall is like a bar that goes the whole length. They used to use it for hanging quilts before the quilts ended up out in the barns during Cowex. So it actually protrudes from the wall. Technically speaking, I should wrap this stippling around on the back side. Am I going to? Hell no. Pretend like I forgot about it, not that it was a deliberate decision to. Just realized, I think for last week's video, at some point I said, "Oh, I'm not going to be talking, so I'm going to patch in some classical music," and then I don't think I did. Okay, good enough. Moral of the story is don't choose stippling as your texture. Uh, okay. Let's do the banners and then we'll see at that point. So this one with the crayons is bright red, so we are going to do something green. But let's use a different green. And I think what I'm going to do on these is I'm going to outline the motifs. And then, so it'll be like this, but yeah, you'll see. Okay, there's juice in it. And you can see I'm kind of wiggling the line too. I believe there is another crayon. No, okay. We're not seeing the other crayon one. There is, but it's not really there. Okay, so now I'm going to use yellow because these gingerbread men ones are kind of a purplish color. And just like smacking it on a piece of wax paper off camera. So this one's not showing. Never mind. Some of these are kind of more like transparent colors and some are better. Let's try a Posca. Brand new Posca. Okay, Pasca. Also a little bit transparent, but uh, then the honey one, we're going to do the opposite because the honey one is yellow, so we are going to go purple. And I'm going to go a lighter purple. This one's kind of more pink. Yeah, that's the only one that's in frame. Gotta look at my reference photo. Okay, yeah, there's honeycombs down there that I haven't properly outlined, but so we got that. And now the last two banners that we see are the yarn with needles, and they are blue, so we will use an orange on those. We're going to do it a little different, just kind of echoing the ball. Probably just like that. Almost make them look like antennas. And actually that would be within the ball, and I'm looking at that, I think. So we're just gonna leave that, well, just looking at the top, you know what, we'll leave that and just have that as plain paint. So, getting close to an hour. There's some bits I had to cut out, so I think we still got another 10 minutes or so. Let's do the wall, right? Okay. So here, just looking at what I've got in my stash. So also going to use a kind of a lighter green, but yeah. And here I'm going to play more with the grid. So some of which may not really show through. It's there. These like hashtag kind of marks. Every so often randomly coloring in one of the squares. Just having that little interruption, I don't know how much it shows through on here, kind of also helps disguise the grid. Now the next layer down has some backgroundy kind of things. I think I'm going to do it with a slightly different green. It's a little more olivey kind of shade. So we have a bit of an interesting situation down here because there is a lattice, right? Now, kind of going, because you can see the people through, but I don't think I want that much in evidence, but I also don't want it to be totally. So I think I'll probably let some of this green go through and paint on an X pattern. I'm not going to use a white pen. Yeah, maybe I should. No. Something a little radical. I've got this night blue, or it's like a sparkly black. What I really want is a gray. Like silver. Is this? One of these. We'll see how well this works. Okay, so this kind of silver. Will it actually be silver when it comes through? It will be, okay. avoiding the areas that have the plastic vases. And should do that on the side. I'm not going to worry here about like these lining up. It's going to be a little bit more the impression of, a lattice panel. And I don't mind that underneath you're going to see ones going in other directions, because I think you're probably going to, at the end, it's just going to be a whole mass of like back and forth crisscrosses. Okay, that's the big one that comes down. So we go there. And that one. Here we're gonna have like two lines, because then there's Ricky and his hair, but. Because the top of that goes like that, where the panel kind of meets the table. So. I think I may do a plain gray going the other direction that isn't. Use the brush into this. Now, I certainly, when it comes to the painting, I will, after the background is done, then I will, or that portion of the background is done, then I'm going to come in with a brush and white paint and make the lattice, but this will still show through in some spots. Generally speaking, it's best to work back to front, So you do your so like the first thing I block in will be the ceiling, get that finished. Then we block in the walls. Obviously, the windows are already done. Then we get the acoustic panels, the banners, or I guess actually banners after this section, because some of them fall over top, and we just slowly work our way forward, right? Okay, that I should not have done, right? Because got our little vases. It's funny how this is a plain neutral gray, but it's starting, I don't know how much it shows in the camera, but this part's starting to look more pink, and that's starting to look a little, yeah, still pink against the background. So anyways, let's see what the hell's in here. Let's some of that's actually in Ricky's hair, but whatever. Yeah, now we get this far side, and then that's probably going to be it for today's video. So, obviously, we have way more of way more paint pen work to do. All right, it's barely a start, but you know, this stuff, it takes a while. I mean, when I was doing the paint pen work on Noah's, come back out to there on the Noah's Clown Dance canvas, then that was definitely a lot of like put a podcast on, and still, I think I probably finished some of the paint pen work there in about 4 hours. I figured most of it, but you know, there's also big areas where I haven't done any yet because I'm working on the area inside the window, right? But anyways, technically outside the window. Agnes and Lorraine are inside the window. But anyways, um, so you got a little texturing done there. The stippling felt like it took forever. It was probably only like 5 or 10 minutes. And then we started a little bit on here and there. The figures, probably at this size, I won't do paint pen work. Ricky, I probably won't. We'll have one more video for sure of paint pen work because I want to get like the planes of this table, right, and then the tablecloth going down. I'm trying to think. Last time I don't think I did paint pen work on Ricky. Very end I did like a little highlight squiggle after I'd painted his glasses, and I think I did some blue in his hair because he's kind of got blue-black hair. And I did like his eye line was paint pen at the very end. So he will look really weird. Initially, we're just going to have like a white, no eyeball. But so that's down the road. But like, yeah, I'm not going to worry too much about. In the next video, we'll do some of the stuff in the vases, flowers, and background. And hopefully we get that done in an hour-long video so that the video after we're ready to start laying in blocks of color in the background. And like I said, we'll start from the back out. So Ricky's probably going to look like this for a while, and then I'll start on him last. So anyways, I hope you've enjoyed this long bit of watching me draw not straight lines. And yeah, like I said, Happy New Year's. Hope your New Year's resolutions are going well so far. And we will see you next time. Bye for now.